Vikings may have their starting quarterback for next season. Minnesota and Kyler Murray have agreed to a one-year deal for the veteran minimum since the Cardinals already owe him $36.8 million. That's the latest from our Jonathan Jones. The former #1 overall pick was released by the Cardinals after spending the first 7 years of his career in Arizona. He was limited to just 5 games last year due to a foot injury. Murray was named to 2 Pro Bowls during the tenure with the Cardinals, with the last one coming in 2021. With that, we welcome in aforementioned Jonathan Jones. Jonathan, we knew something was going to happen. Kyler Murray was that top quarterback left on the free agency board. What is the football world saying about this?
Yeah, we did know that it was going to happen. It was just a matter of if it was going to happen today or if it was going to happen tomorrow. Kyler Murray was in Minnesota meeting with the Vikings, getting a physical. Now, of course, Claudia, we always talk about pending physicals. They wanted to check him out, right? He's had a few injuries, but it had always been pointed, really for more than a week at this point, pointed toward Kyler Murray joining the Minnesota Vikings. This is a one-year veteran minimum contract. So the Minnesota Vikings will be paying him $1.3 million, but that is not all that Kyler Murray will be taking home in the 2026 NFL season. The Arizona Cardinals owed him $36.8 million. Do some math. The Cardinals will now pay him $35.5 million, and the Vikings picking up $1.3 million of that deal. Very common these days in the NFL. We saw it a couple years ago with Russell Wilson. We're seeing it soon enough when it is official between Tua Tagovailoa and the Atlanta Falcons. And now we see it with Kyler Murray and the Minnesota Vikings. No guarantee for Kyler Murray that he is going to be the starting quarterback week 1 for the Vikings. We know he's going to be doing battle with J.J. McCarthy, the previous #10 overall pick for the Vikings a couple of years ago. But one interesting note on this contract, there is a no-tag clause on it. Typically, teams like to reserve the right to be able to use the franchise tag on players if they are balling out. But Kyler Murray signing this deal, being cheap for the Vikings, they agreed, okay, we're not going to promise you the week 1 starting job. You're going to have to earn it. But if you play well, you will have the option to potentially be a free agent heading into 2027. Now, if all goes well and he balls out, we could see a situation like Daniel Jones with the Indianapolis Colts, where ultimately he reached a deal. They were able to tag him, but that one-year tryout period, it worked out well for both sides. So that is what is ahead for Kyler Murray and the Minnesota Vikings.
I'm curious, JJ, we know in the past we've seen video game clauses. Injury was a big concern for him last season. Anything else in that contract that hinted towards injury concern? Of course, JJ McCarthy, their one option now, also coming off of injury. Anything injury related part of this?
You know what's interesting about that, and I'm glad that you brought that up, about the video game clause and about sort of the perception about Kyler Murray. This is going to be me a little bit on a soapbox because I went out to Arizona, and I was actually there the day that he wound up signing his contract. He had this kind of strange press conference, and there was the video game clause and all that. And then I went out there a year later, and I spoke with Kyler Murray on the field there during training camp. And it seemed like a different person. And it seemed like, I think a lot of people have not been watching the Arizona Cardinals, haven't been paying any attention to them because they've been fairly irrelevant for a while. Kyler has developed a reputation that he has to own. But I think that he has matured a great deal. I think that when he got into the league, he was asked to be the leader of a team with a bunch of dudes who were a lot older than him. He didn't feel comfortable doing it. That wasn't his thing. And as he aged with the Arizona Cardinals, he grew into that leadership role, and he matured, and he understood with head coach Jonathan Gannon, who has since been let go, he understood what it meant to be a quarterback of an NFL franchise. And so I think a lot of the talk about Kyler is back when we actually watched the Arizona Cardinals and were paying attention to them. And then he got injured again, and then nobody cared. And so we're still kind of holding that against him from a couple years ago. I'm not saying he's going to be the perfect ideal teammate in Minnesota, but I know a lot of people have been bringing up his reputation and I think that it has been a little bit unfair. I do believe that he's matured a great deal these last few years.
Yeah, and he was pretty emotional, online on Twitter, talking about how he felt like he had so much more to do with his teammates, and it's not how he wanted it to end. So, by the way, I love striking a chord with you. You can take that soapbox whenever you want. JJ, take us behind the scenes. So hopefully this next chapter turns out to be much better for Kyler Murray. Thank you, JJ. And here's a look at his career stats as a starter. You see the passing yards, but as we know, when he's healthy, he's that massive rushing.
And potential landing spots, Jenny.
And I think we should start off with the #1 guy on the list, and Kyler Murray. I mean, you look at the career that he's had, durability always an issue with him. But Pete, where do you see him fitting in the most?
Well, the chairs are getting filled. I
Yeah.
mean, there's not a lot left, so it's time for him to pick one. And I think ultimately he's going to pick the Minnesota Vikings, and I think it makes sense for him. I don't necessarily think he's a great fit in Kevin O'Connell's offense, but they'll figure it out. And he's going to compete against J.J. McCarthy. The winner will be the starter. And you get him for only $1.3 million, and the Vikings have cap issues, so it makes sense in a lot of different ways. I thought, again, if Indianapolis had done what I said, then he would have fit there, but I don't think there's any place else left for him. I think he goes to Minnesota.
I think that you are absolutely correct, and I try to put myself into the shoes of Kyler Murray, and albeit they are tiny little shoes, I think about which place I would want to play football at. It would be, I want to throw the ball to Justin Jefferson. I want to be coached by Kevin O'Connell. I want to have an opportunity to play in a place similar to Arizona with that controlled environment weather-wise in Minnesota, and also just the renaissance for Kyler Murray. We think about how much of a freak show he is, and you and I play, we know how much traits and skills really equate to success. He's got that stuff in droves. If he can pair it up with a good game plan and a good roster around him, I think Kyler Murray, there will be no competition in training camp. That's his quarterback spot.
Let's not forget about the other side of the ball in Minnesota, too. Pair him up with that defense. I mean, how many one-score games were the Vikings in this year when Carson Wentz was in there, Max Brosmer was in there, and it was like, man, if they just had somebody that could throw the ball, push the ball downfield, and convert some third downs, it feels like they would have been in a lot more of those games and had a chance to win. But, yeah, if I'm Kyler Murray, this makes all the sense in the world. Go play for Kevin O'Connell. Go get a chance to throw to Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. Have that defense with Brian Flores on the other side of the ball. Have a chance to revamp your career. You see what Sam Darnold did. Yes. Daniel Jones was there and didn't even play. He goes to the Colts, and all of a sudden he's making 2 years, $100 million. So Kevin O'Connell's been kind of the quarterback whisperer.
He's like the new Kyle Shanahan.
Exactly.
He just wipes the stinks off you and you go make millions.
Wasn't that the movie? The guy who was like, whoever he dates, the next person that they date, they get married. You know it's like quarterbacks get paid now.
You know what's great about it, though? He hadn't fixed J.J. McCarthy, though.
Oh, 9.
Right? Hadn't fixed him. Fix everybody else.
He needs a darkness retreat, I think.
You guys automatically think Kyler Murray will be the starter no matter what.
I think Kyler Murray shows up and wears out J.J. McCarthy.
I do. I think he'll be the starter, but I think they'll make it a competition.
I think it'll be a competition, but I think when they start competing, once the two of them are, I don't think it'll be.
Plus, the GM who picked J.J. McCarthy isn't there anymore.
That is true.
Going to San Francisco?
Yeah.
Make our way down the list. Rasheed Walker, 48 starts in the last 3 seasons after being a 7th-round pick. Pete, how much is that durability at his position valuable, and what does the market look like for him?
He's really good in pass protection. He's not great in the run game. So that's the one concern with him, but he's outstanding in pass protection at times. So if I'm the New England Patriots and I just watch my rookie left tackle become a spinning top in the postseason.
He was hurt.
I know, but he was a spinning top in the postseason. Then I think you might move him to guard, and you get a left tackle who can hold up in pass protection. I would consider it if I were the New England Patriots. Again, they're on record saying they're not moving Will Campbell. I always thought he would be better at guard. I would probably move him to guard and go get a guy like Walker.
Believe none of what you hear and half of what you see. Isn't that what they say? Especially with the New England Patriots. And I would imagine they're going to try to find a way to maximize Will Campbell. So I could see that being a spot for Rasheed Walker, because he's not the premier marquee guy. Okay, it's a very Patriot way to get a good football player, not a great one. We got a bunch of good football players, we can win, but I still think it's the Chicago Bears to Rasheed Walker. You mentioned his pass protection ability. What's the superpower that the Chicago Bears have right now? A creative, off-schedule quarterback. You need somebody on the blind side to protect from those turnover-worthy plays.
And what's a quarterback's best friend? A tight end and a good left or right tackle, depending if you throw righty or lefty. So there's probably a couple teams right now that are sit back watching saying, hey, we need a guy. Patriots, can we move Will Campbell inside? I'm not sure you do that after the first year. I'm not sure. Do you give Will Campbell a chance to kind of ride it out and see if he can fix some of those things? But there'll be a team out there, a quarterback out there that says, hey, I need to shore up on one of my edges, and one of these teams are just going to pull the trigger.
Pete, what was that you said about a spinning top?
Yeah, you know, when you're revolving door, spinning top, turnstile.
Kind of like this?
Yeah. I used to give that award out every week, the spinning top of the week.
The Walmart Greeter Award.
Yeah.
Hello.
I think no, Kyle never won it, but I think Akeem Adeniji kind of retired.
I never won it. Huh? I never won it.
No.
All right, let's continue on this list right now. I want to ask about Juwan Jennings. Led the 49ers in red zone, third down, fourth quarter targets the last 2 years. Pete, where can you see him?
Well, the Bears could use a guy like that. I think when you look at what the Bears have done, their receiver group is kind of, you know, you trade DJ Moore, and now all of a sudden you look at their group and you got Rome Odunze, who was rumored to be on the market. They're not thrilled with him either. I think they could use a big body receiver in their passing game, so I would take a look at him.
Yeah, dependability, reliability. A lot of the times they relied on Olamide Zaccheaus, who was a guy that
he's gone now too.
America fell in love with, and now he's gone, and that was the third down guy essentially for them with DJ Moore out the building. So I could see Juwan Jennings being there. It's all about trust. We talked about Aaron Rodgers yesterday with guys you trust. And you want guys with starts, with production, and that's what Juwan Jennings has. They don't grow on trees.
The other team I could see maybe taking a chance on Juwan Jennings is the New Orleans Saints. You've got Tyler Shuck in your second year. You've got Chris Olave. They just signed ETN to a big deal in the backfield. Get a guy like Juwan Jennings, a big X, pair him on the other side, third downs, red zone, give him a chance. I think that'd be a nice compliment to that Saints offense.
All right, what about Bobby Wagner, Pete? Someone who's shown that he's consistent year after year, season after season. Going back to the Commanders?
When you look at it, now they signed a linebacker, but when you look at Bobby Wagner, he just fits what they want to do. And it's kind of like with Von Miller, the respect that they have for Dan Quinn, they're comfortable there. Look, he's not the same Bobby Wagner as he was in Seattle. He doesn't run like he once did, but he was still very productive last year. He's not as good in pass coverage as he used to be. He used to be able to go sideline to sideline. Can't do that anymore, but he's still a reliable middle linebacker, so I think that would make sense.
I think what he lacks in pass coverage ability at this stage in his career, he benefits the rush group because he's often in that AA mug over the center pre-snap as an offensive lineman. We have to count him more often than not with some of the games that they play. So I think that with his wisdom of the game, he's more often than not in the right spot, sure tackler. I think he is a guy that you try to keep around because he's part of what you do schematically.
A guy like that almost reminds me of what we saw Phillip Rivers do this year for the Colts after being away for 5 years. The fact that he hasn't been around the game, hasn't necessarily been working out throwing, Phillip Rivers I'm talking about, he's been in the NFL so long, you know what defenses run. You know how to set a protection, how to ID the run game. So Bobby Wagner, yeah, he's getting up there in age a little bit, but what he lacks in athleticism and physicality at this point in his career, he's seen it all on offense. He can be a leader for that defense, the green dot for anybody who wants to sign him. And if worse comes to worse, this dude's probably one of the best locker room guys, I would imagine, to be around. You get a young draft pick or a young guy, and you got Bobby Wagner in the room to learn from. I mean, I find it hard to believe that somebody's not getting better.
Well, him and Jaden Daniels are very close, and if you think about that, their age is so different, but yet he's the guy that kind of took him under his wing, and so that makes sense from what you were saying as a locker room guy.
You're talking about a locker room guy, and then, you know, I don't want to speak out of term, but the next guy that I want to bring up, Stephon Diggs, who obviously has had a lot of issues outside of the locker room, you know, but you think about the progress and the success that he's had on the field. What happens to a guy like Diggs, Pete?
And I think some of that stuff you brought up will impact where he can go. I mean, like, for example, he was in Buffalo. He was not, you know, they liked him. They didn't love him there. He had some issues there. And, you know, he was the guy that always wants the ball, which every receiver always wants the ball. As you know, you play quarterback. They complain all the time. But the reality is I think some of that stuff will limit his market. I think it will limit the price on him. But he's still a good, reliable receiver. It's just a matter of if you offset the stuff that comes with him. And I put the Giants down as a possible team. And the reason I did that because Harbaugh is there, and he's handled a lot of guys like that in the past. And I think you need a strong-minded coach. Now, you're bringing him in with a young quarterback. And as a young quarterback, you know how a receiver like that can get under your skin and impact the way you grow as a quarterback. So that might be something they have to balance.
You got to have some stuff to you as a quarterback, as a lineman, as another receiver playing next to Stephon Diggs. So I love that you brought up the New York Giants because I feel like that whole building has some stuff to them now, especially with Scatterbo, Dart. I mean, you're telling me Dart's going to get bent out of shape and Stephon. Dart would say, shut up and go line up. You know what I mean? That's kind of year Dart had. And I think that's the kind of respect football-wise they would have for one another. There's some places you and I both know Stephon Diggs he's not welcome there. They don't want distractions, okay? But then there's some places that say, if you can play football, we'll deal with that other stuff. Giants might be one of those spots.
Pete, you said that you think veteran receivers sometimes might not mix well with young quarterbacks. I think the opposite can also be said, that if you're a young guy, I'm trying to think, when I came into the league in 2020, the receivers that the Cowboys had, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, a couple veterans who had been around a while. I played a couple games in my rookie year. It was comforting knowing that I had guys out there who have been through that, had played with guys that were in similar situations and have a lot of reps under their belt. So I don't know, Jackson Dart might say, hey, I can deal with the off-field stuff. I've got a little bit of my off-field stuff myself. If I'm Jackson Dart, I'll find a way to make some choice routes, some over routes, some of the stuff work on third down.
Well,
exactly.
If you're a strong-minded quarterback, Dan Marino back in the day would have told him, shut up and get in the huddle. You know, if you're a strong-minded quarterback, yeah, that's right. But if there's some guys, like I worried last year a little bit about Drake May when they signed him, and it worked out okay for him. So Drake May, clearly a strong-minded quarterback.
Yeah, he seems so sweet and innocent, though.
Not on the field, he's not.
No,
he's a killer. It's like Phillip Rivers. Off the field, very nice. On the field, killer.
All right, finally, Chig Okonkwo, athletic tight end, only 26 years old, P. And this was another one where you're saying, hey, maybe you should go back to the Titans.
Yeah, and the reason being, I think he's comfortable with the situation, but the offensive line has been bad. The quarterback play hasn't been great, and he still put up some decent numbers. And so I think going back there makes sense. They've added to that offense. I think they'd like to get, a guy back that can do something in the middle of the field. I think that makes sense going back.
That's, one of my favorite things, breaking the huddle as an offensive lineman would be like, okay, we got a good tight end. I know the ball is going to be out, okay? If the X, and the Z receiver don't win, that Y is going to be somewhere in Ben DiNucci's field of vision. Ball's going to be out. That's the kind of thing Tennessee can lean into with their young offensive core, and I think that might be able to get that ball rolling from a momentum standpoint for them.
And he's young. He's already been in that system, already has a year under his belt with Cam Ward. Get him back in there. You've got some consistency. You've got some familiarity, and let those guys kind of roll and figure this thing out.
Well, this has been enlightening, that's for sure. There's still a lot of moves to go down. I mean, that's what.
But I don't think
the crazy.
I think the crazy money's gone, though. I think most of these guys are now going to get those smaller deals.
Well, only time will tell, and we will obviously.